4-track 600-meter race, Heather Dornaden fell.
The bell down. Dornaden falling down.
And the commentators were all shocked. They were like, it's a surprise that she's not hurt. And she was last. On the floor, she saw every single race competitor pass her by and watched as they just took off. What Heather Dornaden did next was miraculous.
Gets up quickly, but that's going to cost her. He wasn't injured. Her teammate just went to the front, though, so they may be able to recover from that. And is flying down the backstretch.
She is catching up.
Gutsy effort by Dornaden. Can she pull it off? She's moved into third.
Results coming.
Dornaden coming on strong. Dornaden all the way. Dornaden. She did it.
She got up and ended up doing the impossible. It is already the middle of 2023. Can you believe it? It is the middle of June. Actually, we're in the second half of June already. And that means half of this year is done. It is finished. This race, if this year was a race, it is almost in the second half. And we are sprinting towards the end. December is going to be here before you know it. And my question to you is, what have you done in this race with the first half? My name is Pastor Sharo. This is the Preacher Girl podcast and video blog. If you're new here, I hope you enjoy it. Every week we bring amazing content to you to make sure that you run this race well. If you haven't subscribed yet and this helps you, I suggest that you do it. You won't regret it. But anyway, back to Heather. Heather was running such an incredible race. In fact, she was the favorite, I think, to win the race. And a decade later, people can't forget this race. Look at the start. So that's how she started the race. She took off and it looked like she was going to win. And that's how some of you started 2023. Great stride. You had, great aspirations. In fact, you wrote down the things that you thought that you were going to accomplish by March of this year. I'm one of those people. I thought by June of 2023 that my sanctuary, the building, the warehouse that I'm trying to convert into a major sanctuary that will hold 1,000 of our people would have been at least halfway completed. Well, guess what? It's June and it's not even started yet. We started other building projects, but we have not yet started that one. And it's so tempting to give up on this and to say, well, this year, it's already half over. And just like Heather Dornaden, it feels like you face plant in the middle of the race. I'm talking to somebody today and that's where you are. It's June and you think that 2023 is a bust because nothing went your way, or even if it started good, right now in the middle, you're just stuck and you feel like there's no way you can finish well and definitely no way you can finish first. Well, the Lord put this podcast in your path today so that you'll realize that it's not the end of the race. He said this, and I'm going to just tell you like I wrote it down. It's not halfway done. It's only just begun. Even if we're in the middle of June, even if we're rounding up June and we're July, August, September, October, November, December, last 6 months to come, God is saying your race is not halfway done. This is your beginning. What Heather Dornaden did was she got up from the ground and she started running as best as she could. And this is what she thought. She said her thoughts were, this is a team effort. I'm at least going to get some points. And so she took off in stride and then she took over the next person in the race. The person who was second to last, she passed them in her sprints, and the judges, the commentators were amazed that she was even able to do that. And this is what I feel like the Lord is saying to so many of you who are trying to give up in the middle of the race. Why? Because you got hurt in the process, or you invested your time in something that didn't pay off, or maybe you landed on your face with something that you tried, or maybe like me, the things just didn't line up to get what you needed done by the time, and your deadline is gone. You told yourself, by June, X, Y, and Z would happen, and here you are. It's almost July, and it didn't happen yet. I just hear the Lord saying it's time to get up and get back in the race. Her thought was, it doesn't matter if I win this, I just need to get some points for my team. So she takes over the next person and she keeps running, and all of a sudden she said there were the other two people right there, and she heard somebody say, the commentators, she heard them say, can you believe it? She is catching up. And she thought to herself, wait a minute, yeah, I am doing that. And that's the word I have for somebody today. Even if it looks like 6 months are behind you, God is saying, I'm going to give you the strength and the second wind to be able to catch up in the second half of 2023. But what you can't do is just lay flat on your face. You can't stay down if it looks like nothing had momentum. You can't give up in the middle of a race, even if you're in last place, even if you're far behind. And watch what Heather does. She passes everybody and wins this race by 1 second. It's mind-blowing to me. I watched it 30 times because you know what? Guess what? If she just won the race, if she didn't fall, nobody would remember. It would just be another 600 meters that some girl won, but because she fell, because she almost lost, because she got up in the last second, garnered all her strength and put it on the track, and she ended up winning a race she was supposed to lose. Many of us will never forget. Many of us get inspired by what she did. To many of us, myself included, she's an example of what can happen if you just get up and start running again. Nobody thought she would win after that fall, but she goes on to win every single person in the race and become one of the most memorable sports moments in history, at least in my book. And I know there are many stories of people like this who overcame great odds to do great things. But today I'm talking to you, ordinary preacher girl, ordinary woman, teacher, mom, entrepreneur, whatever it is you're doing, a baker. You wanted to start a business, but it never happened. You wanted to start painting. You wanted to join, a ministry, and it never happened. And God is saying, don't see it as half done. This is not half done. You've just begun. And God is saying, get up, breathe again, and take off running. You're like, Pastor, I don't know how to start. I don't know where to begin. And God said, I feel like He's telling me, like He's telling you, start in Proverbs 3. Do 3 things. This is how I told you. I'll give you a strategy. It's proven, I guarantee you. And not because I say it, because the word of God cannot return unto God void. It will accomplish whatever it set out to do. And what are those things? 1, trust in the Lord with all your heart. I promise you, it sounds so Bible. It sounds so religious even, but it's so true. If you trust in the Lord with all your heart, you won't stop running. You will get up, get your feet back in the game, and start pumping those arms, start moving. He said, trust me with all your heart, even though it feels like it's not a trustworthy time in your life. Recently, this past weekend, actually, our church went through a very, very hard season. We lost in a car wreck. We lost one of our sons, and somebody that's very dear to all of us. And as the pastor, it was such a heartbreaking moment for me that I sat in my house and said, Lord, I can't do more of this. I can't handle this. How am I supposed to emotionally process this, but yet keep encouraging people while stuff like that's going on? But I hear Him say, get up and get back in the race. Even if you fall, the strength is not in the fall. The strength is in the getting up after the fall. And I feel that. He said, do you trust me? And my answer is a resounding yes. Some of us trust, but we don't trust all the way. Not with all our hearts. We trust up until it's comfortable or easy. But when it becomes difficult, or worse, when it becomes impossible, we lose the trust. And whoever I'm talking to today, God is saying it's either you trust me or you don't. You can't kind of trust. Trust is not like that. Imagine that you're hanging from a bridge by your last bit of strength in your arm, and somebody says, give me your hand. It's either you trust that person or you don't trust that person. You can't halfway. You can't be like, okay, I'll give you a finger and expect that that's going to be your rescue. It's either you will let go and grab their arm or you don't. And God is saying, will you just trust me with all your heart? Take the risk in July. Start again at the last week in June. You don't have to pretend like it's January 1st. Make the call, set up the website, buy the product, do whatever it is you thought you were supposed to do in January and failed because you fell, because you face planted. and it looks like if the race is almost over and you're last, God is saying, will you trust me with all your heart to do it? Will you sing the song, write the book? Will you take the course? Will you do for the kingdom of God what you said you were going to do at the beginning of 2023? The second thing he said is don't lean on your own understanding. Can I just tell you what that means before you sign off, because you think this is a sermon? You know why you're not doing what you said you would do? Because you're trusting your own self to fail. When you lean on your own understanding, what you do is you line up all your ducks and you make enough excuses that seem valid. So logically, this is not going to work because X, Y, and Z didn't do what they were supposed to do, and this didn't happen, and I don't have this, that, and the other. So all the cards don't line up. Therefore, it is not my fault that I can't win this race. That's how you lean on your own understanding. He said, don't lean on your understanding, lean on my understanding. And you know what that looks like? That looks like I can't make this boat not sink, but Jesus can walk on the water. My understanding says, you throw me in the den with hungry lions, I am lion food. But his understanding says, I'll shut the mouth of the lions. My understanding says, small boys with slingshots cannot kill giants with swords. But God's understanding says, Jehovah Sabaoth will fight for you and the giants will fall before you. My understanding says that small people who are girls born nowhere without master's degrees in business cannot become millionaires. And God's understanding is, for I've called you by name and I have appointed you and I have chosen you for this purpose, you can absolutely do it. And you know what? It's really cool that the word he uses there is the word lean. You know what lean means? Lean means that you put all of your weight on your own understanding. Your support is your own logic. And God says, don't lean on that, because it's not a trustworthy strength post, pillar, wall. I don't know about you, but I don't even trust my understanding as far as I can throw it. Because sometimes I feel I understand something only to realize many years later that I had it all wrong. And so God's saying, don't trust your understanding. So if I don't trust my own understanding, what can I trust? His word. 100% trust his word. And the last thing, he says, in all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. In all your ways. Last week, we got to go out into Manhattan and do an awesome outdoor service in one of the most scenic and beautiful places in New York. And I'm telling you, this is the same place where Macy's and they do their huge 4th of July fireworks and hundreds of thousands of people line up. Do you know how much we would have to pay to rent a place like that? Let's just say I couldn't afford it. And in my understanding, it would be impossible for us to ever get permission to go into a space like that. Now, public spaces, maybe I could get a permit, but private spaces, I couldn't afford the rent. But you know what God's understanding says? God's understanding said, I'll open this place up for you, just go. But here's the thing. If we had given up on it and said, you know, it won't happen because it's not logical that a church could get a space like that, you know what happened while we were there? We just found out that somebody was healed during the sermon on that day. And that's crazy. That's God's understanding. Not only was a person healed, you know how many people were saved that day? How many people gave their hearts to Jesus Christ that day? I didn't even make an altar call where people could come up to the front. We had hopers, people from my church, going into the crowd and just praying with people. That's God's understanding. He said, in all your ways, acknowledge me. You know what that means? In your family ways, acknowledge him. In other words, God, you're first. God, how do you want us to deal with this? God, is it your will that we go on this trip? God, is it your way that we spend these resources this way? God, is it your will that we purchase this home? God, is it you understand? Acknowledge him. To acknowledge means, the word acknowledge means to first of all admit that he's there, to recognize his authority, and to recall what he has already done. So whatever it is that you said that you would run this year, whatever you said that you would succeed at this year, you would achieve, accomplish, or win at this year, then you go back into the word, you go back into your life, you go back into the testimonies of the goodness of Jehovah God and say, I acknowledge that you did this before. And if you've done it for them, you would absolutely, you are able to do it again. That's how you acknowledge him. And he said, if you, in all your ways, acknowledge him, he will direct your path. In other words, he'll tell you, get up and put one foot in front of the other. Just like Heather finished her race, one foot in front of the other. And she didn't win by a long shot. She didn't win by a mile. She won by a second. But she won. And is remembered and was celebrated. And 14 years after she did it, here am I telling you, showing you, using her as an example of how if you fall, you don't stay down. So, preacher girls, I hope today somebody is encouraged. Whatever it is that you said to yourself or said to the Lord or said to your family members, or you designed in your heart, you determined that you were going to do in this year, that now you are halfway in your race and you face planted, you've fallen, you know that even if you got up now, you're not going to finish by December because in your own mind it's impossible. May I just ask you to start now? Get up and do the work. You said you were going to lose 40 pounds. What happened? Why'd you change your mind? You're like, well, oh, it's July, and then it's going to be the 4th of July, and then it's going to be Thanksgiving, and then it's going to be Christmas. Get up and work out. Get up and just do the things. You said you were going to get closer to the Lord, read your word. You said you were going on social media and you were going to start talking about King Jesus. You said you were going to witness to at least one person every day. What happened? It's not too late. This is not the end. God is saying, get up and start again. Because this is your warning. This is your sign. This is me coming here to tell you that God said you'll still win. In all your ways, acknowledge him. And this race is yours for the taking. Well, Preacher Girls, I love you so much. Before I leave you, I want to remind you that the Preacher Girl Online Summit is just around the corner. Over 10,000 women all over this planet register to be a part of this free online summit. We have some of the most incredible, dynamic, powerful women of God on the planet that are there for 48 hours teaching you, instructing you, giving you free information, telling you things that you would have to pay thousands of dollars to go to at other conferences free of charge. And I want you to be just following the Preacher Girl on social media so that you find out when registration opens, because we always have amazing things for the first 100 or first 1,000 people that register, and you want to be a part of this amazing summit. Stay tuned for that. And don't you ever forget that if God called you, no one can uncall you, and you don't need a pulpit to be a preacher. You just need a message. I love you so much. Don't forget to subscribe.